Coming in at number 5, we have the Mayans 2012. One of the most well-known situations of the world is going to end was brought to us by the Mayans. The Mayans were known for their advanced calendar system that originated as far back as the 5th century BCE. The last calendar day was on December 21st, 2012 and began the worldwide doomsday craze. Many believed the date suggested the world would end on that day in some sort of catastrophe, and others believed it would mark the beginning of a new era on Earth where Earth would undergo a positive physical or spiritual transformation. The idea that the world is going to end was a media craze, and almost everyone heard about the conspiracy that in 2012 the world would just end completely. Even became a box office hit, ironically named 2012. As we all know, the world in fact didn't end on that day 9 years ago, but many speculate that in fact the world did end. The theory is that the Earth was swallowed by a black hole and scientists placed us all in a simulation, and us being in that simulation initiated the popular Mandela effect, and also questioned the likelihood of time travelers. The Mayans never said the world would end on that day, but with the calendar ending on that day, everyone figured that would be our fate. Even though the year 2012 came and went, there are still so many people who believe that the world will end sometime soon. Whether it be contributed to an apocalypse, a natural disaster, a war, climate change, or global warming, we don't really know, but it doesn't stop people from getting prepared for the end of days. Coming in at number 4 is David Koresh and the branch Davidians. Among actual prophets, there are so many self-proclaimed prophets, and one in particular is David Koresh. Born Vernon Howell but later changing his name, growing up was hard for Koresh. He was born to a single mother who gave birth to him at only 15 years old and was a troubled child, but the church had been a part of his life since a young age. He attended the Seventh-day Adventist Church. In the 1980s, Koresh had moved to Waco, Texas, where he became a born-again Christian and joined the branch Davidians, which was an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventists, a Christian religious movement that flourished in the late 19th century in America, and today about 19 million people are members. Many say that Koresh corrupted many people and turned their faith and beliefs into a cult. Koresh played guitar and sang in church services. In 1983, he began claiming the gift of prophecy and gained increasing power within the branch Davidian community, and had quickly begun to gain a following. The Waco branch Davidians, thanks to David, based their faith on apocalypticism and the notion that they lived in the final times according to the book of Revelation in the Christian Bible. Koresh claimed himself their final prophet. 90 miles from Waco in Palestine, Koresh set up camp for himself and his followers to live until the apocalypse happened. Koresh had brainwashed his followers, making them believe he was the Son of God, the Lamb, and would open the 7 seals. Also, Koresh was an advocate for polygamy, and eventually fathering over a dozen children in the compound. There have also been many accusations of negative misconduct at the hands of David Koresh. Everything David had worked for came to an end on February 28, 1993, known today by many as the Waco Siege. This standoff with the FBI and the branch Davidians lasted a total of 51 days, with constant communication with various FBI negotiators and David Koresh. By the end of the 51 days, people had had enough, and the FBI was instructed to take down the church by force. Using firearms and other resources, the church ended up catching fire, and David Koresh, along with 76 of his followers and 4 FBI agents, had died by the end of the 51-day siege. Coming in at number 3, we have James Rawls and the Survivalists. Not only were there prophets and cults that believed in the ending of the world, there were also those who call themselves survivalists or doomsday preppers that believe there will be an ending to the world or an apocalypse. Many believe in different ways this will happen and when, but they are prepared for whatever comes their way. These so-called survivalists know that doom is certain, imminent, and they must be prepared. A man who is dominating this survivalist culture is James Rawls. Formerly a US Army captain, he is known these days as founder and senior editor of survivalblog.com. He wrote a book, How to Survive the End of the World as We Know It, and also works as a survival retreat consultant. Rawls believes an economic collapse caused by a power grid failure will be our doom. He has said the power grid is the real linchpin of society. It fuels our economy and controls all automatic ordering systems. Without it, our economy would just shut down. In winter, you'd see a mass out migration from cities as refugees flood the countryside. Rawls resides on a remote ranch at an undisclosed location with his wife and children, living completely self-sufficient. They keep livestock, hunt elk, have a 3-year supply of food, and live near a river, so there is an endless supply of water. Due to his lifestyle and his preparations, he isn't worried about when the world will collapse because he is ready and prepared. He has even stated that he is so remote that if the Western civilization were to collapse tomorrow, he wouldn't even notice. For Rawls and his family, it's not about if the world will end, it's about when, and when it does, they are ready for any anything. Rawls states that any follower or future follower of this survivalist lifestyle, they must have stored firewood or coal, massive amounts of food storage, possibly even their own gardens and livestock, as well as firearms and medical training. Coming in at number 2, we have Jim Jones and the People's Temple. One of the most popular self-proclaimed prophets and cults of all time is Jim Jones and the People's Temple. As a child, Jones was an avid churchgoer, and after graduating university, he decided to join the ministry in the 1950s in Indianapolis. He was a charismatic man who claimed to have the ability to see the future and heal those who are sick. Because of this, he gained a following, and in 1955 he established the Wings of Deliverance, a Pentecostal church that eventually became known as the People's Temple. Fearing a nuclear war, Jones relocated his church to Northern California in 1965 after coming across an article in the Esquire that listed 9 safe places to live in case of a nuclear catastrophe. And that is why he chose California, because he was often paranoid of a nuclear war happening. Jones, who adopted the name The Prophet, became obsessed with the power of being the leader and having others listening to his every word, and he also wanted his followers to adopt his apocalyptic vision. After spending some time in California, rumors started swirling of Jones and his followers, and the probability of the group being a cult, and Jones taking advantage of his followers and stealing their income for his own use. Because of these accusations, Jones and hundreds of his followers moved to Guyana to build and live in a commune together called Jonestown in 1977. The next year, Leo Ryan, US Representative of California, arrived in Guyana with a group of reporters to investigate Jones and the alleged abuse of members, and also bring home some of his followers who wanted to escape. But before their exit, Jones had ordered their assassination, and Ryan and 4 reporters were killed by Jones's people. Jones knew some of the people did escape, so he initiated a mass extinction plan. On November 18th of 1978, Jim Jones demanded his people to drink cyanide-laced punch, which many followers passively obeyed, and Jones himself passed away that day with a self-inflicted shot wound to the head. A total of 918 people died that day, and it is the largest number of American civilian casualties in a single event to date. And finally, in at number 1, we have Heaven's Gate. To put it lightly, the Heaven's Gate followers believed in UFOs and impending doom. The leaders of this cult were Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, and founded this new religious movement, or more popularly characterized as a UFO religion, in 1974. Applewhite and Nettles met in 1972, and they believed they had been chosen to fulfill biblical prophecies, and that they had higher level minds than other people. 2 years after the couple met, they had decided to take their views to others and started attending churches and other spiritual groups to speak of their views to others, and eventually they would get many followers to believe in their bizarre ideologies. They would also tour around the United States proclaiming the gospel of higher level metamorphosis, the deceit of humans by false god spirits, envelopment with sunlight for meditative healing, and the divinity of the UFO too. The two believed that their impending doom was coming, and the only way to escape was to voluntarily turn against the next level by taking your own life. And the members were convinced by their leaders Applewhite and Nettles that there would be a fast approaching UFO which would act as their mode of transportation to the beyond. Applewhite would say to his followers that the mass extinction is the only way to evacuate the Earth. In 1996, the group began renting a large home that they called the Monastery in Rancho Santa Fe, California. That same year, the group purchased alien abduction insurance, and yes, apparently that is a real thing. The policy covered abduction, impregnation, or death by aliens. Applewhite persuaded 38 followers to prepare to take their own lives so that their souls would board the supposed alien aircraft and their souls would go to another level of existence above humans. On March of 1997, the members began by mixing applesauce or pudding with phenobarbital and washing it down with vodka. They had also put plastic bags around their heads after ingesting the toxic mix to induce asphyxiation. All members participating were dressed in identical black shirts and sweatpants with brand new black and white Nike shoes, and also had an armband patch reading Heaven's Gate Away Team. The group had said the matching uniform symbolized unity. Once each member had passed, a living member would proceed to remove the plastic bag from their heads, posing the body on its own bed and covering their face and torso with a purple cloth for privacy. Among the 39 dead were 21 women and 18 men between the ages of 26 and 72.
Number 5 on this list is the continued damaging effects of climate change. That's right guys, we're going there. In 2021, temperatures in North America had some record-setting numbers. Over the last few years, temperatures have been rising significantly, and 2021 was no different. The west coast of Canada and the United States were the hottest that they've ever been this past year in 2021, and we saw what rising temperatures can cause. Forest fires raged in British Columbia and in California, and with the temperatures continuing to rise, this will only get worse and worse. Something concerning as well is that the nighttime temperature was hotter than it's ever been. Typically, it's very hot in the day and then gets pretty cool in the nighttime. This allows our bodies to cool off when we sleep. However, in 2021, the temperature during the night didn't drop nearly as drastically as it usually does. And this is because the Earth is holding on to that heat in the atmosphere and it's having a hard time escaping. With all of this being said, and the fact that no real dramatic change has been made to our greenhouse gas emissions, scientists predict that this trend will continue in 2022. They've come out and said that between 2021 and 2025, there is a 90% chance that we will have the warmest global year ever. They also predict that there is a 40% chance that in that same time frame, we will reach 1.5 degrees Celsius higher than what our global temperature was at pre-industrial days. All of this heat also means that they're predicting a lot more tropical storms as well. The frequency of cyclones in the Atlantic area is supposed to rise. Forest fires, as I mentioned earlier, will continue to rage and be harder to suppress, and southwestern North America is likely to be a lot drier than it's ever been. Basically, scientists believe that 2022 will continue to break climate change records and be pretty detrimental to the Earth. Number 4 on this list is a prediction from Baba Vanga. This one is pretty bloody triggering, and I can only hope that she's wrong about it. Baba Vanga thinks that in 2022 there will be a deadly virus that is released from a glacier and that will ravage the world. Now, if you don't know who Baba Vanga is, then she was a woman who lost her eyes at a very young age, but then developed the ability to have visions. She's also made a lot of correct predictions over the years, with people saying that she has an 85% success rate. Brexit, the Syrian gas attacks, the first United States black president, all of this stuff was predicted by Baba Vanga. In 2022, she is saying that a glacier will melt due to global warming, and that in that ice will be a virus that will get released into the world, and our human immune systems won't be ready for it. After COVID, I cannot handle any more viruses or diseases or anything like that at all. The sad thing is though, that this could very well actually happen. We already spoke about global warming and how it is continuing to rise, with 2022 having the potential to be the hottest year ever. This is obviously causing the glaciers on the poles to melt. Now, the whole aspect of having a virus released because of this kind of sounds like it was taken straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually accurate. Scientists have found viruses in the ice before, and after testing them, have realized that they are nothing like what we've ever seen. Therefore, our bodies would not be capable of fending off these viruses because they have never encountered anything that's similar to them. Some of these viruses may not even affect humans either, but they could affect animals or plants. This could be just as detrimental though, as it has the potential to absolutely annihilate the ecosystem. Either way guys, we just have to cross our fingers and hope that any viruses found in the ice aren't too dangerous, and we just dodge this bullet altogether. Number 3 on this list is another catastrophic economic recession. Yep guys, it's time to talk money, or well, I guess in this instance it would be the lack of money. After the massive economic recession that took place a little over a decade ago, everyone is still on high alert, doing their best to make certain that we don't fall into that trap ever again. This is easier said than done though, because there are often extenuating circumstances that are out of our control. For instance, COVID. That really hurt the economy and nobody saw that coming. Stuff like that is kind of impossible to predict. However, that doesn't stop people from trying to look ahead and see what the next economic year will hold for us. Right now, a positive economic recovery is seen as very likely due to many people believing that 2022 is supposed to be the first normal year back after the pandemic. People will have savings that they want to spend, they go out, they spend them, bang, the economy loves it. But experts believe that this level of economic optimism has reached an unstable place. The stock market is predicting such a big boom, and the experts don't think that the money will actually hold up to what they're predicting. It should also be noted that the percentage chance of an economic recession has been slowly rising over the last few months. Right now, it's believed that in July of next year, there will be just under a 10% chance that the entire United States economy goes into a major recession. A 1 in 10 chance, it's not horrible, but when you're playing with people's life savings and their jobs, that gets a lot scarier very quickly. Economic optimism can be a good thing, but overconfidence can bring us to a very scary place, as seen by the housing market collapse of 2007. Number 2 on this list is a prediction by Nostradamus. Now, would this really be a 2022 predictions list video if we didn't have Nostradamus in it? He's basically a staple whenever it comes to scary predictions. This time, he believes that a major climate war will start in 2022. For those of you who aren't familiar with Nostradamus, he was a French astrologer and seer in the 1500s. Now, we still talk about him today though, due to his major work called The Prophecies. The Prophecies is a collection of poetic quatrains that predict things to come in the world. Nostradamus has been proved correct with some of his prophecies, such as the death of Henry II, the Great Fire of London, and the French Revolution. We actually talked a little bit about Nostradamus in a previous video looking at the top 5 mysterious people who tried to warn us about the apocalypse. In 2021, Nostradamus believed that zombies would take over the world. Pretty outlandish if you ask me, but the one that we're talking about today is a little bit more reasonable in my opinion. Nostradamus says, under the opposite Babylonian climate, great will be without the outpouring. As we've already spoken about, climate change will be greatly affecting our world. Could it be possible that a country has a shortage of resources due to this climate change and has to go to war? Potentially a lack of clean drinking water could cause some type of chaos between two nations? Maybe the world enacts new climate change laws that one country refuses to follow and therefore goes to war with some other nations. I'm not sure what it's gonna be, but all of these things, they could have potential. The one thing about Nostradamus is that he was never very specific with his predictions and often left it up for interpretation. But I do think that a war involving something climate based is certainly a possibility and would be particularly horrible because war could only ever hurt the climate even more. Number 1 on this list is another prediction from Baba Vanga about a dragon taking over the world. That's right folks, clearly Baba Vanga was a very busy lady while she was alive and had multiple predictions for the year 2022. In this one, she believes that a dragon will take over the entire planet. In fact, she is quoted as saying, "A strong dragon will seize humanity. The 3 giants will unite. Some people will have red money. I see numbers 100, 5, and many zeros." So we have a lot going on here. We have dragons, giants, money that is red, and some strange numbers that kinda came out of nowhere. If we take what Baba Vanga said literally, then I can almost guarantee you that it won't come true. In my entire living life, I have never seen a dragon before, and as much as I would love to believe that they're real, I think it's safe to say that one is not going to appear next year and ravage the planet. That being said though, if we break down what she said a little bit more, then there could be some serious truth in what she's saying. Specialists of Baba Vanga believe that when she is referring to a dragon, she's actually talking about China. The giants that she's referring to, interpreters believe, are the 3 biggest countries in Asia: China, Russia, and India. Therefore, they will unite as a force, and the dragon, China, will take over the world. The money being read could be in reference to yuan, and the denominations of 100 or 5 could be referring to some important monetary number of those yuan that hasn't been made clear to us at this point. Now, if we take her meaning as I just described it, it actually doesn't sound nearly as outlandish as it did when we were talking about dragons. However, this would be pretty freaking bad because I can only imagine that the giants uniting and the dragon taking over the world would mean a massive all-out war. If China, India, and Russia are involved, that also means that the use of nuclear weapons would probably take place, in which case 2022, it's really going to be a lousy year, guys. Number 5 on this list is Malthusianism. Malthusianism is an idea created by Thomas Robert Malthus that looks at the human population growth and its relationship to food consumption. The premise of the theory is reasonably simple. Basically, population growth will grow exponentially, but the production of food can only ever be linear. If the population grows exponentially and food production is linear, then there will eventually be a point reached where not everyone on the planet can get food. This is called the Malthusian catastrophe and the doomsday scenario that we're going to be looking at. Malthus writes about this extensively in his essay on the principle of population. Ever since he wrote about this theory, people have debated its validity for centuries, with scientists being on both sides of the argument. It's even led some extremists to rally for population control, basically meaning that we thin the herd so we never reach this world-ending scenario. There are some counter-arguments to Malthusianism, with the biggest one being human innovation. When Malthus lived, he never had the means of growing food like we have today, and our innovation continues to grow as time goes on. That being said, around 9 million people die from hunger every year, so I wouldn't be surprised if this catastrophe started to materialize in 2022. Now, I should note that it wouldn't be an immediate thing where all of a sudden everyone is hungry. It would take years to see the full-scale effects of the population shaving itself off due to hunger. However, we've talked extensively about climate change on this channel before and the scary effects that it's currently having on the planet, and food is one of them. Climate change isn't making it any easier to grow food. In fact, the rising temperatures are making it far harder in some places. In the areas where it's already so hot to begin with, it's become increasingly more difficult to grow crops due to the lack of water. This is made to be an even bigger problem as well, because typically the places that are already hotter to begin with are the areas of the world that suffer from famine the most. All of this being said, our ability to grow food due to climate change is becoming harder. Our growth in population, though, isn't slowing down at all. If you take a look at any global population chart, then you will see that our growth is exactly as Malthus suggested: exponential. It's very possible that 2022 is the year that we see the scales tip, and due to all these factors, enter into the Malthusian catastrophe. Number 4 on this list is an asteroid. The idea of an asteroid smashing into the Earth has been something explored in the media and pop culture pretty much ever since we realized that's what killed the dinosaurs. Now, I shouldn't state that as fact because it isn't 100% confirmed, but that is most scientists' working theory right now. They believe that a celestial object crashed into the Earth, and that caused the climate on our planet to change so dramatically that the dinosaur species couldn't survive any longer. David Morrison of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Ames Research Center talks about the impacts of an asteroid hitting Earth further, where he says, "The effects of an impact on the Earth depends critically on the size and hence the energy of the impact. For example, a comet less than 100 meters across will explode high in the atmosphere and probably do no harm whatsoever. If the comet is 10 kilometers across or larger," and then in brackets he says, "that is if the impact carries an energy of more than 100 million megatrons," and bracket, "the resulting global environmental damage will be so extensive that it will lead to a mass extinction in which most life forms will die. The environmental consequences of a giant impact take many forms. The worst effects come from a global firestorm ignited by backfalling impact debris and from global pall of darkness that lasts for many months due to the dust suspended in the stratosphere." So obviously an asteroid coming to Earth, if it was a large enough size, would be horrible and likely mean the end of all human life as we know it. As of right now, though, we look to be in the clear because there hasn't been any reports from scientists detailing an asteroid that's on trajectory to Earth, but some people have conspiracy theories surrounding that. It's been speculated upon that even if scientists saw an asteroid was on its way to Earth, that this wouldn't be released to the public. Similar to how people think the government has covered up the existence of aliens, they also believe that a world-ending scenario like this would be swept under the rug as well. This is because mass chaos would ensue if we all knew that we were going to die. I tend to put my faith in science when it comes to stuff like this, but crazy things in the universe happen all the time, and an asteroid hitting us might just be one of them. Number 3 on this list is a solar shutdown. Back in the 1970s, the study of the galaxy and space was at the forefront of everyone's minds. We were learning a lot about our universe and how the laws of physics operate in space. We were also learning a lot about our sun, the most important thing to us in our living solar system. During this time, though, we made an unsettling discovery about it, something that if proven true would end all life as we know it. This is called a solar shutdown. A solar shutdown is when a star, like our sun, doesn't operate at its full power, but its activity level drops. This activity level could drop as much as 40% compared to what it's doing now. The reason that they theorized this is because the sun wasn't emitting as many neutrinos, a particle associated with solar activity. As more research came out, paleontologists have found evidence that this happened roughly 650 million years ago in a period that they refer to as the snowball Earth. They call it snowball Earth because Earth was basically one big ball of ice. If the sun was to lose 40% of its power, then the oceans would all freeze over and all life on Earth would cease to exist. The problem is, there's no way we would ever be able to stop this or do anything about it.
We also wouldn't know that it's happening until it's actually transpiring right in front of us, because there's no way to predict it. The sun means literally everything to us, and a dip in its activity by just a little bit would mean our slow demise. We just gotta hope that 2022 isn't the year that it decides to slow down. Number 2 on this list is a massive cyber attack. Ever since the introduction of nuclear weapons, humans have always had those at the forefront of our minds when it comes to massive world-ending scenarios. However, we need to start shifting our thinking a little bit. A cyber attack could be just as deadly, if not more so, than a nuclear war, and it's honestly far more likely in my opinion. Since the beginning of the internet and online activity, the capability of someone being able to remotely hack into someone else's computer and steal information, that's all been possible. It's also possible to remotely hack into someone's computer and control things on said computer. This has happened many times in the past and on some extremely high-profile companies too. For instance, in 1999, Jonathan James hacked into NASA and the US Defense Department. He was able to install a backdoor into the computers, which then gave him access to tons of classified information like passwords to military computers. The craziest part about all of this was that Jonathan was 15 years old when he did this. It's really not a reassuring thought when a 15-year-old is capable of hacking into NASA and the US Defense Department. If a terror group was to do something like this, then the power they could possess could be endless. They could remotely launch nuclear weapons at will. They could shut down power to everyone on the planet who might be on life support. They could honestly do almost anything they wanted and launch the world into a complete disaster. This is one of the ones on this list that I fear the most of all. We just have to hope that the firewalls of these high-profile companies are stronger than they were in 1999. Number 1 on this list is the equation. This entry is really interesting and something that's widely debated in the scientific community. Richard Gott III was an astrophysicist and is one of the founders of the equation that ultimately predicts when the human race will end. He first got enthralled about the idea of creating a math equation to predict the future when he did that very thing in terms of the Berlin Wall. He predicted that the Berlin Wall would fall within 2.5 and 24 years. He was correct, and it did in fact go down within that time frame. He then took the equation that he did that with, and along with some other physicists, attempted to apply the same equation to the existence of humans. The time frame isn't as long as we may hope though. In fact, this math equation gives even odds that the human race will no longer exist from right now until 760 years from now. So that means that next year is very much in the time frame that we could all die out. Now the way that this equation works, you don't actually know how the human race is going to end, just the time frame that it's going to happen. This is part of the reason why some other scientists have refuted this theory, because they believe that the equation can't possibly be correct if you have an unknown variable causing the actual extinction. As far as we're concerned, we kind of just need to hope that they're right and God was wrong, because even if next year isn't the one where it all comes crashing down, 760 years still isn't that much time left on the clock.
Number 5 on this list is a prediction from Nostradamus. All of these prediction videos need at least one Nostradamus appearance, and this time we're going to be talking about how he's predicted an attack on the human race from artificial intelligence. Nostradamus had a very famous collection of poetic quatrains called the Prophecies, which dictate things to come in our world. He's certainly been proven wrong several times, but has also had his fair share of correct guesses as well. This specific poetic quatrain is as follows: robots will destroy mankind. Those of Lake Geneva and of Masson, all assembled against those of Aquitaine, many Germans, many more Swiss. They will be routed along with those of the humane. So breaking this down a little bit, he says that robots will destroy mankind. And I mean, I feel like that's pretty straightforward what he's trying to say there. But then he talks about Geneva, Masson, and Aquitaine, which are all regions in France, and then Germany and Switzerland. He says that they will die along with the humane, so people. Now, I'm not really sure why he felt it necessary to specify those specific people and places if robots are meant to take over the entire world, but potentially they'll be attacked first. AI is getting more and more advanced every single day, and it is proven that it can be vastly smarter than a human being. Providing this AI with consciousness is something that is still a work in progress, but many scientists, billionaires, experts on the subject, they all believe that AI will one day rule the world. From what I've heard so far, I honestly tend to agree with them. However, I don't think that it will be a great war with laser beams and an actual battlefield like some may be predicting. I think that if they're gonna beat us, it's gonna be in a different way. I could definitely see something like this taking place though. I'm not sure if it's gonna happen in 2022, but with the way that technology is advancing, I mean, I definitely can't rule it out. Number 4 on this list is the eruption of Yellowstone. For those of you who don't know, Yellowstone is a super volcano that is located in Wyoming in the United States. Now I know that the term super volcano sounds like the coolest thing in the entire world, but I promise you that things wouldn't be super cool if this thing ever exploded. In fact, things would get very hot very fast. A supervolcano's explosion is thousands of times more powerful than that of a regular volcano and extremely deadly. That's because this volcano is fed by several miles of hot magma underneath the surface. Now the magma, although it would be major and annihilate everything in the surrounding area, that wouldn't actually be the biggest problem with this thing erupting. It would be the ash. If Yellowstone was to erupt, then practically the entire United States and parts of Canada would get covered in several feet of ash, rock, glass. This would be enough to kill millions of people, destroy all of the crops and agriculture in the area, destroy electrical lines, buildings, like it would destroy a lot. All of this ash would have a dramatic effect on the air that we breathe as well. This could become extremely toxic to us and would then further kill millions of people. It would also have a huge impact on climate change too, and not in a good way. An explosion of this caliber would be so devastating that it's hard to even comprehend. Now the positive here is that most experts don't believe that Yellowstone is set to have an eruption like this for thousands of years. However, that hasn't stopped people from predicting that Yellowstone is going to explode this year or the next year or maybe even the year after that. In all honesty, even though scientists have a pretty good understanding of this, we never really know the full story. Yellowstone could just erupt whenever it feels like it, and there would be absolutely nothing that we can do about it. For now, we just have to hope that the experts got this one right and that we're safe for a little while, because living in an apocalyptic ash world, not my idea of a good time. Number 3 on this list is another one coming in from Nostradamus. It's actually insane how many predictions this guy made. He almost touched 1,000. This one though doesn't relate to a major AI attack, but has to do with the demolition of our world in a different way. A big meteor shower that could cause some cataclysmic disasters. Nostradamus writes, very near Auch, Lecture, and Mirand, a great fire will fall from the sky for 3 nights. The cause will appear both stupefying and marvelous. Shortly afterwards, there will be an earthquake. So once again, let's break down what Nostradamus is saying here. The places that he listed are all areas of France. Now he believes that this great fire from the sky, as he puts it, will happen very close to these areas. This will happen for 3 straight nights, and I can only assume that it won't only be the night, but he's probably talking about the full 72 hours of 3 days. This great fire will then cause an earthquake. Now, nowhere in here does he say specifically that the entire planet will burn or fall apart during this great fire. But if we were to experience asteroids hitting the Earth for 72 hours straight, and assuming that they were large enough to cause an earthquake to happen, then I don't see any way that our planet could possibly survive an event like this. If these veered off enough to land in the ocean, then the tidal waves that this could cause would be massive. Not to mention the damage to the people of France. Obviously, this is all dependent on the size of the asteroids that are hitting the Earth, but like I said, if they're big enough to cause an earthquake, we are probably all going to die in some massive natural disaster caused by these things hitting the planet for 72 hours straight. Number 2 on this list is a massive all-out nuclear war. This isn't a prediction from just one person, but by tons of people. A nuclear weapon has been used twice during warfare in human history, both times by the United States against Japan in 1945. Even though 2 doesn't seem like a lot, that is still way more times than this weapon ever should have been used. That is simply due to the absolutely catastrophic damage that a nuclear weapon can cause. This damage comes from the initial mushroom cloud explosion that vaporizes and burns anything in its radius, and then also the massive fallout of radiation from an explosion of this size. The radiation poisoning will last for years and years and is so detrimental to humans and the environment. The 2 times that the bomb was used was so disastrous that no one has used one ever since to target humans. However, that doesn't mean that we didn't continue to make them. Right now, the world is home to roughly 14,000 of these weapons. This number is honestly ridiculous, and even though it's been slowly dropping as people disarm them, it is still enough to completely annihilate the planet. Experts estimate that any nation that fired 100 of these weapons on somebody would actually begin harming their own nation by doing it. Not only would this completely destroy whatever country was the recipient of 100 nuclear bombs, but the environmental pushback would be so costly that the country who released them would have mass deaths of their own. The amount of soot and ash that would fill the skies would cool the planet dramatically, as the rays of the sun would then bounce off of them. Lack of natural sunlight caused by all of the ash and the reduced precipitation that it would cause would greatly impact the growth of food. So much so that the experts believe most countries, they couldn't feed themselves. Basically, 100 nuclear weapons exploding is the magic number when it comes to world-ending scenarios. Nuclear war isn't guaranteed to happen, but rumblings of World War III have been going on for quite some time. The state of the Middle East is troubling to say the least, and I for one would not be surprised if somehow things escalated to a point where these weapons got involved and we blew all of humanity into oblivion. Let's cross our fingers and hope that the people with the power to push the button think twice before doing so. Number 1 on this list is the melting of the ice caps. Ice caps are large, thick pieces of ice that cover big areas of land located at the North and South Poles. There are billions of tons of ice in both locations, home to many species. However, this stuff is melting, and it's melting really fast. In fact, people estimate that every single year we are losing anywhere from 750 billion to about 1.3 trillion tons of ice. Put that number in perspective, folks. 1 ton is 2,000 pounds, and we are losing 1 trillion of those. That number is so extremely large that our human brains can't even really fathom what that looks like. This isn't slowing down either. People believe that 2022 could see a massive jump in the amount of ice that is about to melt. Now, maybe you're thinking, it's just ice, why does it matter? Well, it matters because if all of this ice melts in the world, then New York City, Tokyo, Beijing, St. Petersburg, almost the entire state of Florida, these will be completely submerged in water. Island nations will be destroyed. The Central Americas won't really exist anymore, and climate change will skyrocket because our natural cooling system, the ice, will all be gone. This is already happening in some places as well. Tuvalu is a Pacific island nation that is starting to evacuate their people to New Zealand because their entire country is getting flooded. Millions and millions will die, and millions more will become homeless. Ecosystems will fall flat, and agriculture will suffer. The climate will continue to skyrocket, and there will be no coming back from it after that. This also isn't even factoring in the diseases that could be released from these glaciers, because I've already covered those in another video. This is real and is happening right now and will assuredly continue to get far worse in 2022. It truly is an end of the world scenario and needs to be addressed immediately.